everybody. Welcome to TAPED Crusaders. This is the big one, folks. Unreleased FF film from 1994, Fantastic Four. I'm your co-host, Mike L. As always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell. I can't wait to talk about the movie that never should have been released.
Whoa! Okay, I don't know what you are talking about, but it should have actually been released. It's so awesome. But that's okay, because we're going to talk about your opinion and mine, and this guy's over here, Champion. Thanks for hosting us, Champion.
I also have an opinion. Yes, hello. How are you doing tonight?
Okay.
How are you doing tonight?
So
I'm referencing this this production and not the quality of the film.
Okay,
but
yeah.
But the producers
diss the quality of this film.
The producers plan for this.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. First, before we get to the film, let's talk about the Fantastic Four. Ian, are you familiar with the Fantastic Four?
I'm familiar with the number 4.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the adjective fantastic.
Okay.
You put those two things together, and I have a hazy notion of some superheroes.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of a thing?
The Thing?
I have heard of the concept of a thing.
There we go.
So, okay, long story short, the FF were the first official Marvel comic. Yes, Marvel Comics existed before then, but this started the Marvel Universe, created by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby. It was the biggest Marvel comic of the 60s. Since then, they've never been able to really recreate the magic. There's been great runs since then, but it's the foundation of Marvel. It introduced many of their characters. It was a benchmark for the company, and then there was a cartoon, then there was another cartoon, then there was another cartoon, and then they made this movie, and we're going to talk about this movie, and then since this movie, there's been 3 more movies, and now there's going to be
a fourth one
another movie coming very soon. Well,
that's just fantastic.
Yes, it is. Josh, what's your opinion on the FF?
I like the Fantastic Four as characters. I don't know if there's anything that's quite captured the magic of the comic books. Not even the cartoon.
You're right. I agree.
Like nothing really. Like I feel like the Fantastic Four name has kind of been sullied a little bit. I feel like people's perception of what the Fantastic Four is a little bit hazy, right? Like
based on what? What makes you
on everything else besides the comics.
Okay.
It's like if the only other media of Superman was the Zack Snyder Superman, and it was like, that's what Superman's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's not,
Yeah, the thing about Fantastic Four is, and many people have tried to figure out, why can't it ever be, done as well as it was in the 60s? So I had an idea, and it was, why don't they make a movie and set it in the 1960s? And then some guy on the internet was like, it doesn't need to be set in the 60s. It just needs to be good. Anyway, the guy's name was Kurt Busiek. But anyway, who knows who he is.
Right.
But Champion, just so you know, Kurt Busiek is a big comics writer. And he dissed me on Twitter.
Oh.
So you're telling me you gave Kevin Feige the idea?
Yes, it was my idea.
To set the new one in the 60s?
To set the new one in the 1960s. It came from here. But anyway, Twitter's good for something.
That erase some of the sting of the Twitter diss?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, actually.
That's good. Glad you're not lingering on that.
Yeah, exactly. 7 years later. So anyway, who cares about that? We're going to talk about this movie. Now, Ian, I don't know if you know about the backstory of this film. Do you know anything about the backstory of this film?
I learned a few things about the backstory of this film after watching it.
Okay.
And learning those things changed a bit of my perception of the film.
Okay.
Though not as much as you might think.
It does almost give this film a new context, for sure.
It does.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. Anyone who's watching a review is probably going to know the context. So why don't we talk about the context after and just talk about our impression of the film, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I'll just say that I was one of those ones that got a copy in the 90s on VHS, and me and my friends circulated it, and we all watched it, and at the time, I could see why it wasn't released. Mm-hmm. However, there were certain things that I did enjoy about it. Josh, what about you?
Yeah.
How did you come across this film?
I feel like I came across this film like a long time ago. And it was kind of through the production, like the history of this film.
Okay.
That's how I found out about it. Like, it wasn't through a bootleg or somebody saying, oh, there's this Fantastic Four. No, it was always this movie that shouldn't have been made or shouldn't have ever been released and was kind of locked away forever. And it wasn't until like 2010s, I think, that it started circulating online
Yeah, probably.
in
I'm
a
not sure, but
larger
yeah.
capacity.
Right.
I'm sure at some point it was
Well,
on
I think
before
it's
that,
because
but
it was remastered.
oh, okay.
I think that's why it kind of exploded again. It's because there is like a decent copy of it
Right.
now, right?
So-
before that was like VHS copies.
Yeah, I watched like video essays on it before I had even seen the
Okay.
movie. You know, like I was so interested in just the production and the history
Okay,
of it.
so but here's the thing: is so Ian, you didn't know any of the backstory. Let's just talk about this movie.
Sure.
We've seen a lot of bad movies and TV shows on this podcast.
We've seen a lot of them, and we've known a lot of them were bad going in.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ian, just based on what you saw in those 90 minutes or whatever it was, what is your first impression of this film?
Well, going in, this was sort of, I mean, I'd never seen this before. I'd never heard of it before. I only watched it because it was coming up on the podcast. And based on the description that you'd given me, I was expecting this to be lumped in with the same sort of garbage films like
Captain America.
Captain America, the 1991, Supergirl to an extent.
This Supergirl, honey.
Yeah, I thought that this was going to be a very difficult watch, and I sat down. I just done like 8 hours worth of like bookkeeping for the bar, so my brain was melted. I was irritated. I was in a bad mood, and I was like, "Ah, God damn it! I got to watch this terrible Fantastic Four movie for this stupid podcast tomorrow." And I sat down and I watched the first few minutes of it, thinking, you know what? I just want to make sure this works. I want to make sure I have the right one. Maybe I'll watch it tomorrow or something when I wake up. And I watched the entire thing. It captured my attention enough that I sat and I watched the entire thing on the first try.
Wow.
Now, that seems like a pretty low bar, right?
Yeah.
I got through it.
Yeah.
But I was not expecting to get through it. I was
Man.
expecting this to be another one of those, let's watch it at double speed.
Sure.
But no, this was a movie. This was a movie. And a lot of the stuff that we've watched doesn't quite reach that level.
Yeah.
This it had characters, it had a plot, it had villains with goals that we knew what they were. It wasn't too confusing.
Yeah. I think for me, the big thing is that it felt like a fan film, which in a good way.
Yeah.
Because it, like, and in bad ways too, right? Like the budget you can definitely see in this movie. But in a good way too, because like all the actors felt like they wanted to play those characters and they were trying to kind of portray them.
Yep.
The story felt very like, I feel like a comic booky is like a very big buzzword that is used a lot for superhero movies, but the tone of everything felt like the Fantastic Four comic more than anything else, I think. Like it has this sort of
Here's the thing.
charm.
It's almost like we're going to talk about the budget, but without even mentioning the budget, I think that there's obviously a charm to it, and there's also a passion. Like, as far as I know, the guy who wrote the script was a huge Fantastic Four fan, and I think it shows. And I was paying attention to the way it was shot, and the cinematography is like decent. And it feels like, even though we know the budget was only $1 million, which I'm pretty sure it was like the average budget for like a music video at the time. You know what I mean? But like they shot it in a way that they hid the low budget, right? And
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part, they filmed it in a way that like it served what they had. And like you said, the actors all seemed like they were into what they were doing. They were passionate about it. They were kind of having fun, right?
Yeah.
And some of the actors were actually really good, which we're going to talk about. The plot was decent. There was a couple things I didn't like about the plot, but overall, the plot, like the actual movie itself, minus the budget, there was nothing terrible about it. It was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, I think so. There were things about it that didn't work, I think, as a whole, like story-wise,
Well,
let's
okay,
say.
let's put it this way. Fantastic Four basic story. Brilliant scientist has a college roommate who's also brilliant. They have a falling out. brilliant scientist has a best friend who's a jock. In the comic book, Reed Richards gets the idea, I'm going to be the first man in space. It was written in 61. I'm going to be the first man in space. Oh, they won't let me go. Okay, well, my best friend's a pilot, so we're going to go anyway, and we're going to take this young teenage girl who has a crush on me and her younger brother, and even though they have no qualifications, they're going to be the crew. Let's fly out into space and sneak into ship, fly out into space. Oh, everything's fine. Oh, no, it's not fine.
Is this what happened in the
comic
books?
books?
Okay.
Yeah.
We get bombarded with gamma ray. No, sorry. Not gamma rays. Cosmic rays.
Cosmic rays, okay.
And then we crash onto Earth, and then we all realize we have powers, and then we become the Fantastic Four. And in the movie, they follow that pretty closely,
Yeah.
except that they don't sneak onto the ship. The whole trip is publicized, and everyone knows about it. But other than that, the first third of the movie follows the comic book pretty closely.
Yeah, even down to Victor and Reed's relationship
is pretty
ahead
well
of time,
done.
and before he becomes a villain, and
Right.
This is very interesting for me to hear as somebody who hasn't read any of these comics. And
Right.
they followed the story?
They actually followed the
For the
story.
most part,
they actually
yeah.
followed the story. So let's just talk about this basic story. Again, we're going back to 1961. They handle it pretty well. We have to figure out a way to get 4 characters to all get superpowers. Now, in this movie, Reed Richards, Stan Lee or Jack Kirby were the ones that came up with the superpowers. But yes, they were analogies for their personalities. But the characters in the movie aren't supposed to know that. But one of the things that happens is Reed Richards is like, wait a minute, Sue, what you just said, you've always felt invisible. And Johnny's always had a hot temper. Okay, that was bad.
That was
terrible.
And I spread myself way
Too
too
thin.
thin, like my
Yeah.
arm's getting really long. And then, you've always been made of rocks.
Yeah.
I was
Get racks for brains.
I was so worried when Ben bumps into Alicia and the statue breaks and
Yeah.
he's picking up the pieces. I was so worried he was going to accidentally forget a piece in his pocket, and that's the clay from the statue was going to turn him into the thing because of the cosmic rays.
Okay.
Would have made a little bit more sense. And
I guess
the whole
but
love will turn you back to normal again.
that is not part of the comics.
No, I didn't.
No, that is awful.
Okay,
yeah.
here's the thing. Okay, so again, you know the plot of this movie. It's pretty straightforward. Fine, decent. I feel like even for a low budget film, what frustrates me is the middle part of the whole movie where they just stick these 4 characters in a room for 30 minutes. Okay, we're going to run these tests on you. We're going to do this. And it's okay, I know you have no budget, but you could have figured out a better way to do this than just have them stuck in this room. And then, we're going to try and sneak out now. And we're going to trick these guys to coming in. And then we're just going to do the effect where the video spins around, and then the thing's beating up everybody. Okay, and then these 3 guys are going to disguise themselves in these $5 suits they got at Dollarama, these hazmat suits,
Yeah.
right? And then go into the headquarters.
Then
whatever.
the suits, they don't even really factor into their escape plan because they're still
I know.
sneaking under if they're seen, they're caught.
I know.
It doesn't matter what you're wearing.
I mean, we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but basically, okay, let's put it this way. As an actual plot of the movie, I think it's pretty good. The only thing I think doesn't work is the old tired trope of having 2 villains in the movie. Dr. Doom works, the jeweler does not.
Yeah, dollar store mole man
Right.
is not good.
Does not work at all. Those were the only scenes in the movie where I was bored, where I was checking Facebook.
Yeah,
and-
I wasn't sure what was going on with the whole jeweler subplot. It seemed very Penguin from Batman.
Yeah.
100%.
Very much so.
Who's this guy? Why is
So-
he
Yeah,
here?
it's like you
This
want to be a Tim
character-
Burton movie only for this little subplot.
Yeah.
This character is based off of a comic book character called the Mole Man, and he lives underground. And I think there is a story in the comics where he steals a woman. And
I think so.
You
I
know what I
can't
mean?
remember, yeah.
So I think that they're trying to play off that, but I think by the time the script was written, they didn't have the rights to
That's probably what it was.
Mole Man or something, so
Yeah.
they had to change it last minute to be
They couldn't get Danny DeVito.
right. Yeah, he'd be a great Mole Man.
Okay, look, let's just bring it back here. Let's just try to focus because there's so many things we talk about. Let's talk about. We're gonna talk about the budget last.
You want to talk about the cast?
No, we'll talk about the cast.
Okay, yeah.
Let's talk about the cast. Okay. So we have our access to the interwebs here.
Yeah, let me bring it up here.
Let's talk about.
So we have Alex Hyde White as Reed Richards.
Okay.
Rebecca Stab as Susan Storm. Jay Underwood as Johnny Storm, and Michael Bailey Smith as Raphael, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Huh?
He looks like a Ninja Turtle thing.
We're going to talk about that later. Let's talk about Reed Richards.
Okay.
My least favorite actor in the movie. Apparently, Stan Lee, when he met him, is like, "You're exactly what I pictured as Reed Richards." Stan, shut the fuck up. I thought he was terrible.
What would you know,
Yeah,
Stan?
exactly. I thought he was just terrible. I didn't like him at all as Reed Richards. What did you think about him? Sorry, I know if you're watching this, but
no. I thought he was fine as Reed Richards. I think he was serviceable. I don't know if anybody to me like stood out as like the definitive version of the characters.
I'll get to that in a minute. But
okay.
I didn't think he was great. Ian, what did you think?
He was just some dude.
Yeah.
He was just some dude. I couldn't... I don't know. I had trouble keeping the lead characters straight for the first little bit. Like I got him and Victor confused. I don't know. He didn't stand out at all. If it wasn't for his weird little like gray hair streak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When they
gray temples.
When they aged him a little bit in the later parts of the movie, that's how I knew who he was. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, it was funny when he burst through the door and knocked the little girl over at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that was weird. That was weird. Yeah, there's a lot of. Well, first of all, who's this Woody Allen? He meets Sue Storm when she's like a tween,
was creepy.
And then how many years go by, and like
Not
now
enough.
he's in love with her. It was just a weird. Like in the comic book, it is established that he is much like. That's why he has gray hair, and she is like 19-ish. And that's like, okay, let's just back up. After watching this film, I have a new theory. Okay, you want to hear it? There was a what-if story done where they said, what if the Fantastic Four was the original Marvel bullpen? The bullpen was the Marvel offices, and it was Stan Lee, the writer, Jack Kirby, the artist, so Mr. Fantastic, the Thing, Johnny Storm... I don't remember the guy's name. It was like Saul something. He was like the publisher or something. A guy I'd never heard of. He wasn't a creative person. The girl was Flo Steinberg. Now, Flo Steinberg is infamous as being the kind of correspondent of Marvel Comics in the 60s. So if you wrote a letter to Marvel in the 60s, Flo Steinberg was the one who would have written back to you. She was like the secretary, but also like whatever. She did all the office stuff, right? She was also beautiful. She was probably much younger than Stan Lee. And so I'm thinking when Stan Lee was writing this, creating these characters, he's probably like, okay, well, I'm going to base this guy on Jack and this guy on Saul and this is me and, well, this is Flo and this is like, I'm 20 years older than my secretary. And so he probably just wrote her as Flo Steinberg. That's what I'm thinking. Right?
Tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, side note. So anyway, back to the movie. So that was weird. But what were we talking about again? The actor?
Yeah. How he has no
not
charisma.
Great, not memorable, not charisma, not a good actor. Doesn't look like Reed Richards.
Yeah.
He sucked. Anyway, okay. Who's next on your list, Josh?
Okay, let's see.
Well,
we have Rebecca Stab as Susan Storm.
Talk about the definitive actor to play a character. Okay, look, we've had a few actors play Sue Storm. We had Jessica Alba, and then we had the girl from Fan Four Stick. I actually think this actress, what's her name again?
Rebecca Stab.
She is the best Sue Storm, in my opinion. I think she is. I mean, to me, she looks the most like the comic book version. She's actually a good actress. And she's beautiful, and I just think she fits. I think she's the best Sue Storm. That's my opinion. What do you think?
I wish she had something to do in this movie.
Okay, that's a fault of the writing.
She did sew up all the
off screen.
Yeah, for some reason, and just brought them out. Hey, remember what my mom said? We're the Fantastic Four.
Also, why did your mom say that?
Oh, that was bad. Weird. That was really bad.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing too. In the comics, her superpower is to turn invisible, but as the years went by, they gave her more powers, which was to generate force fields and like be able to walk on force fields and protect the team. In this movie, all she does is turn invisible and using a special effect that I can do, right? Like anyone can do. And I wish they would have given her a more, what's the word? Not assertive, but like she didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like they should have expanded her power range.
Yeah, she just followed around Reed.
Right.
Not even just give her like a little plot, like a subplot where she has to go find the code somewhere hidden in the Dr. Doom's lair. Like,
Sure.
I think she like turns invisible and doesn't do anything to save the day at the end. Like she
No.
just is
Yeah,
gone.
like
right?
every time, like everyone is using their powers to try and get themselves out of these battles, right? And then she
Yeah.
just turns invisible, and then they
Two guards
they
bump
shoot
into
each other.
Oh,
Right?
that's garbage. That's garbage. I know.
Yeah.
She did use a force field once,
Okay.
Did she?
I don't
but that
remember
was
that.
not. That's right, because it wasn't established in the movie. I didn't know that this force field thing was a thing.
Yeah.
I forget exactly why she used it, but just out of nowhere, like okay,
I
I guess
kinda
we're
forgot
doing that.
Yeah.
It just happens once.
That was, I mean, yeah, mishandled, but we'll talk more about that when we get to the budget. But yeah, the actual special effects of her turning invisible were pretty terrible. But Josh is going to go to his list here.
Jay Underwood as Johnny Storm.
Oh, okay. Ian, did you recognize Jay Underwood?
No, I didn't.
Did you, Josh?
Nope.
The boyfriend in Uncle Buck? You've seen Uncle Buck, right?
Yeah,
Uncle Buck,
yeah.
that's John Candy.
John
isn't
Candy.
It?
Remember the daughter's boyfriend who John Candy threatens with I think, is it a chainsaw or a...
I don't remember.
Okay, anyway, it's a great movie. But anyway, he plays the boyfriend, so I knew going into this, that's the guy from Uncle Buck. So he was a fairly big actor at the time. I actually thought he did a pretty good job as Johnny Storm. What do you think?
Yeah, he did fine with the script and like
Right.
the comedy that he's got. Him like being impatient and like the
Hot-headed?
in like the government facilities when they're finding out about their powers or whatever. It's okay. He does a fine job, I think, as being that comic relief character. But I think his character suffers the most in terms of showcasing their powers.
Yeah, so Ian,
Like,
just so you
really
know,
bad?
in the comic, he's either a normal guy or he's flamed on.
Okay.
And in the movie, they kind of like cheap out for the first...
So in the comic book, he doesn't do the
Whoa,
I've got
not
flames in
really.
my hand and that's it.
Not
They do
really.
that in all the movies and all the shows. I feel like it's kind of a thing he does now
But
to do like just in the hands.
But if they had the budget, he would have been flamed on most of the time. Put it that
Right.
way.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that
the
later.
epic
We will.
Yeah.
finale,
we will.
yeah.
But as far as the actor, Ian, what'd you think?
I know what they were trying to do, right? I know that he was trying to, like, he was going to be the silly character. And I think he was hamming it up a little bit too much. I think it was a
Sure.
little bit too over the top.
Okay.
I don't know. He was out of the four of them, he irritated me a little
Interesting.
bit. Right.
Oh, okay.
Like Reed just bored me. Sue was fine. Didn't really do anything. Nah, he just kind of he bugged me. Whenever he started losing his shit, just
Okay.
rein it in a little bit there,
Okay,
buddy.
what do you got on your phone there, Josh? Who
we
else?
also have
The guy who played the Thing.
Michael Bailey Smith as Ben Grimm.
He was okay. I believe somebody, when I watched the documentary, they said that they thought he was like the best actor out of the group. I thought he was pretty good.
When he's Ben Grimm, he's fantastic. It is a different actor playing the Thing. There's a different person in the
Yeah,
costume.
it's like a stunt man. But I think the main actor does the voice still, right? But it's just different actor.
But I think when he's Ben Grimm, I actually do like him.
Yeah, he's
as
pretty
Ben
good.
Grimm.
Yeah,
yeah,
he's fine.
I do really enjoy it. When he does turn into the Thing, though, it's hard to look at for me.
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, okay.
That's
I thought
part
maybe it's part of the
two.
character.
This might
but
be a
okay,
two-part
okay.
episode. Yeah.
Wow.
But as Ben Grimm, what'd you think?
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. He's definitely the most charismatic person on the screen. Like, even when they're going to like the house to get Johnny and Sue to like recruit them for the space mission, he's the one that's like excited about it. He's like cracking the jokes.
Yeah.
He's talking to the mom. Like, he's the person we feel like we're following this whole time.
Sure.
Reed and Sue have that like moment where they like stare at each other when she comes down the thing.
I noticed that.
And then Johnny does like nothing. He's like just in the background, like he's the one like cracking jokes and interrupting them, and like he's way more charismatic, I think, than anybody in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. He's got personality.
Yeah.
Nobody else really had a personality beyond, I don't know. It's you feel a little bit of empathy for his situation too. Once he is in the suit and he's sad because he's a rock man now, you feel for his character.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of what is established as he's a person earlier on, right? You can feel for him.
And also too, he's a gigantic man. He's huge. Like he looks like way taller than everybody else, not as Ben Grimm.
The funny thing is the stuntman that plays the Thing is shorter than that actor. So when he transforms,
probably,
he
yeah.
actually shrinks. It's bizarre. Now, the one thing I'll say in the comic, as far as I know, when Kirby drew the Thing, he was not excessively tall. He was never meant to be. I think over the years he's gotten bigger, but I think in the original comic, I think he was just average height.
How big is he now? Like in a modern
Comic?
Fantastic Four
I think he's
movie?
like
Hulk size?
Yeah, I
Like,
think he's like not only is he 7 feet tall, but he's also like 7 feet wide.
Okay.
But in the original
So
comics, he was
he's
just
a
like an average
boulder
guy
now.
that just was rocky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's evolved over time.
So his suit in this film would have been pretty close to what?
Fairly accurate to the
Probably,
comic.
yeah.
Yeah. In fact, the guys that designed it said they went back to the old comics to design it. So
I feel like obviously because it's a person
yeah.
size but I think in the comics he's a little bit like wider and
Sure.
kind of exaggerated out a little bit, but in terms of the height and everything, even like the texture, it's pretty close to the comics. Yeah.
There's one more actor we got to talk about. I mean, we're not going to
Yeah.
talk about Alicia Masters. She was fine too, but we're going to talk about
Wait,
the
who's that?
Huh?
Who's that?
Alicia Masters, the blind girl.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk
Played
about her
by Kat
quick.
Green.
She was fine.
Yeah.
She was really. I've seen her in interviews. She's really nice. She was good in the movie.
Yeah, I think she was really, really great actually. But there was like one line that she did that bothered me. I don't know. I don't know if they just like did it once and they're like, yeah, good enough, and
What was
didn't
it?
do it. When Dr. Doomis has her in like a chokehold and like the gun to her head, and she confesses her love to Ben.
Okay.
The way that she like screams it out, I was like, what movie is this from? Like that felt like so out of place,
Right.
especially for her, because I felt like I kind of was enjoying her character in the movie.
Okay.
It felt strange,
Might
but
have been a bad take. Yeah.
yeah, but I thought she was pretty good, and I think a very interesting subplot and a really great. I mean, I know this is from the comics, but her character is really great to represent kind of what the Thing is going through.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't think that she does like sculptures in the.
Oh yeah, in the comics.
Does she?
does,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
interesting.
That was an interesting way for her to learn that Bennett died. First of all,
Right.
She's making these sculptures for the victims or of the crash before they realize that everyone's still alive, and she's just sort of like feeling. She recognizes his face from the sculpture. Thought that was interesting, but I was a little, I don't know, scratching my head at the way that they met initially.
The way he bumped into her.
He bumps into her
and destroyed-
and destroys her sculpture. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, not to be ableist here, but why is a blind woman carrying a sculpture down a flight of stairs or up a flight of stairs? Like,
Right.
is there nobody else who can be maybe
Right.
helping this woman out
Sure.
with this issue? But then for him to like forcibly pick her up and lift her and be like, "You're safe with me.
Yeah.
You're safe with me," and for that to be all that she needs to fall in love with this man,
Sure.
I
weird, yeah.
wasn't really buying that, but I don't know. It didn't seem as though whoever wrote this knew too much about relationships to begin with, considering what going on with Reed and Sue.
That's a good
and-
point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Okay, we got one more actor to
Okay.
talk about, and he's a good one, I think. The guy who played Doctor Doom.
Joseph Culp.
Okay, Joseph Culp. Listen,
Joseph Culp.
I watched the documentary called Doomed, and he's freaking awesome on camera. Okay, I know
Yeah.
we don't see much of him because he's in the suit for most of the movie, but in these interviews, he has this weird intensity, and I'm like, they could use him now to play Doctor Doom. Like, I think he's really got a presence. So I thought he was pretty good, and comic book. We'll talk about this later. Comic book accurate suit, which we won't talk about.
Sure.
But I will say it is hard to judge his acting because he did not get a chance to loop any of his lines.
That's clear.
So
That makes a lot of sense.
what you
Yeah.
hear in the movie is what the actors heard on set. Behind that's what was done. So it's hard to judge his acting, but I thought he was great. What'd you think?
I don't know. You're right. It is hard to kind of judge his acting because I felt like I didn't see him act like vocally. He's just kind of there to deliver his lines.
Used his hands.
That was
really embarrassing.
awful.
That was okay. I take back what I said.
his fingers things. He's just doing this because his gauntlet like clicks or whatever.
I
Like, you know what I mean? He's just
know.
constantly doing what?
Okay, you know what?
That and like
Yeah.
touching people's
Yeah.
faces.
Or he writes.
Okay,
You have
good actor,
15
but-
minutes.
Yeah.
He drew out.
I know.
15.
You know what?
So
Okay, I
long.
forgot about that.
Bye bye. Like. It's
Still a good
just-
actor, but that part was bad. That was bad.
Yeah, I don't know what he had in mind for when they were gonna dub it
What
over.
he had in mind.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe if they had set something like that up in advance, maybe if earlier in the film Victor had been like
An interpretive dancer.
Yeah, or a
Yeah,
a
was
mime.
always talking like this.
I know, yeah.
Maybe somebody called him out on it, or
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I do think he's good on camera, but that part was bad. The hand motions were bad. But other than that, he was good.
he was certainly animated.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was
He
certainly
he
animated.
certainly had a presence.
Yes,
not
he did.
everybody in this film had a presence.
That's true.
Again, over the top. It would have been great if we could understand what he said. I didn't know that he didn't have a chance to overdub his lines. That
Right.
makes a lot of sense.
It explains a lot.
And when you look at it like that, Jesus, it's a wonder that we could understand anything at all.
That's true.
It's a good thing he did pantomime everything.
Yeah,
Because-
maybe that's why, because he knew. Yeah,
It was actually
no one's
sign
gonna
language.
understand
Yeah.
this.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so-
not great. I don't know.
So here's the thing, guys. Now is the time. Now we can talk about the budget. Oh boy.
$1 million, you said? It was $1 million?
million dollars.
Sounds like a lot of money, but for a movie,
No, I
It's not a lot of
believe
money.
Batman's budget was 40 million or something. So,
Okay.
not a lot of money. Okay, to make a long story short, here's the 30-second version. Some guy had the rights to Fantastic Four, okay, that he got for like $20 from Marvel Comics. He had a deadline in which it was, if you don't start production of a Fantastic Four film by this date, the rights will revert back to Marvel Comics. So he's like, oh shit, the deadline's coming up. Okay, what am I going to do? He hires Roger Corman. He says, can you make this movie for $1 million? Roger Corman goes, yes, I can. Okay. They get a guy to write it. They put it into production. They make the movie. Everything's going somewhat according to plan. Stanley comes to set. He likes what he sees somewhat. Then he doesn't like what he sees. He goes into public and starts dissing the film. That's fine. They're publicizing the film. The cast and crew are doing promotions. They're going to comic conventions. They're signing posters. And then at some
Out
point...
of their own pocket.
Out of their own
as
pocket.
well.
Out of their own
wow.
pocket.
The
This is a
actors are
passion
paying
project. Yes.
to do all
passion
of this
project.
stuff. Even
Enter-
the
like
director.
they're paying for booths. At,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like pay
Comic-Cons.
for like flights.
everything.
Yeah, everything.
They're
Wow.
They're also the director paid out of his own pocket for the score for this movie too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that was
And-
not part
and-
of the $1 million
and-
budget.
Oh wow.
And as we said,
Yeah.
they were dodgy about post-production, about effects, and and the crew were the ones who were like, "Hey," like the Doctor Doom guy was like, "You know what? We really needed an extra shot of me. Just shoot me sitting here, and we'll add it in later." And look, I'm going to come in on my own time and do this and overdub my lines, even though he didn't get to do that. But there was a lot of that. There was a lot of passion in the project. But now enter Avi Arad. Is that his name?
Yeah, Avi Arad, something
Who
like that.
now we
Yeah,
know
Australian.
as one of the highest ranking people in the whole Marvel Studios thing. He basically invented Marvel Studios, as far as I know. what's his name? Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feige.
I don't know. Who gives a shit? I don't care. You guys know the positions. I don't care. Avi Everett, whatever his name is, came in and looked at this project and was like, okay, we're like about to start becoming really big in the media, and this is how we're going to introduce Fantastic Four to the public? No. So here's a check for a few $1 million. I'm going to pay off Roger Corman, and I'm going to pay you to shelve this project. So Roger Corman is like, okay. They took this movie and they burned all of the copies in existence, except theoretically one that's in Avi Everett's like closet safe somewhere. Maybe it's not. And then they delivered a cease and desist to the cast and crew and said, stop promoting it. It's not going to be released. That's it. So that ends the official history of the film. Then it goes on to what happened was somehow the guy that played, I think it was either The Thing or Doctor Doom, got a copy and paid a company like in Chatham to like, okay, here's a copy of the film. Can you reproduce it and like make 2 copies for me? Okay. And then the next day it magically entered the black market. So obviously that company, made another copy and just like started distributing it. And somehow it made its way to my house in like 1997. That's the history of this movie.
And now we're here today.
And everyone can see it for free. So basically the movie's never been officially released. And that's it. Avi Everett's an asshole. And then they've made 3 more Fantastic Four movies that some people think were not as good as this one.
What do you think?
Huh?
What do you think? Where do you think this one ranks in terms of...
I think it's the second best one.
It's the most authentic. Okay, the newest one from 2015 is the worst.
It's
wow.
It's the
awful.
it's
Wow.
in a different way. It's depressing and confusing and sloppy.
Yeah.
And just not Fantastic Four. This has the spirit of Fantastic Four.
You know what though too? It has the same spirit as the producers did when they made this movie. Like it feels like, oh, we can't lose the rights to the Fantastic Four. Let's just make a shitty Fantastic Four movie and release it.
You mean?
Fan Four Stick
Yeah.
to the 2015, 14 one, whatever it was. It really does feel like just let's get this movie out there so we don't lose the rights to this.
That's
again.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So it
Considering
is-
the movie where they were in danger
Right.
of losing the rights, they didn't mail that in.
Yeah.
They tried as hard as they could.
It is like a total opposite. And it's like the first Fox, or I guess it wasn't Fox. Wasn't Fox.
I think
but
somehow it made its way to Fox. I think Fox was involved somehow, but I could be wrong. I think I could be wrong. But here's the thing, guys. I want to talk about the special effects. Okay, Mr. Fantastic was garbage in this film. I'm sorry. Okay, objectively speaking, like a guy's 20 feet away, in the same room, and he just goes like this, and then we cut to a shot of a hand, and then we fill it in with some primitive CGI. It was garbage. And the thing too is that Mr. Fantastic can do more than just stretch. He can completely change the shape of his body. He can become a beach ball. He can become a parachute. He can become a whatever. Obviously, they couldn't pull that off with the limited budget they had, but still, they could have been a little bit better. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I think some of it also has to do with the editing, because those sort of like cuts could work, right?
Yeah.
Where you like go like this, and then we cut to a shot of like a stretch, and then we cut to
like a long something. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like put like a wooden arm in a shirt and just stretch it out.
Yeah,
or accordion it out or something.
So like it's not the fact that it is like a low budget effect, because I think that maybe besides Sue, he's the easiest one to do special effects for, because you can do something effectively, just all practical effects. I mean, I don't think that they ever did a CG effect for Reed this entire film, right? Like, I can't think of anything.
There might have been something in there, but to me, it's like you have clothes. The clothes can cover anything.
Right.
Like just use a rubber something. I don't know what. I don't know. What do you think, Ian?
Ridiculous.
Okay.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
It's in a situation like this, you have to know your limitations.
Sure.
And it seemed to me as though they either didn't know their limitations. They didn't know that this was going to look like crap when they tried it. Maybe they had an idea and they just didn't know what they were doing. you have to know that you can't do too much. So use camera angles to hide this stuff.
Right.
Use objects in the foreground to hide this stuff. Use the costume to hide this stuff. Don't like this weird stop motion. No, it didn't. It didn't work at all. It didn't work at all. Although the hilarious wedding as they're driving away, and this enormous arm is just like
it's so stupid.
waving out of the sunroof like one of those air inflatable used car
at a used car
things.
lot. Yes,
It was ridiculous. I had this thought about midway through the movie. I'm enjoying it, but I got the sense, and I said this in my head, it's like this movie was storyboarded by an 8-year-old. And at that exact moment, Reed did the thing where he stuck his leg out and tripped like 10 people that just kept tripping over his outstretched leg. And I was like, maybe a 7-year-old.
Or him sneaking out of like the laser beam that they're stuck in to kick
sneaking under,
this
which doesn't make
machine
sense.
to
But
hit the
okay,
lasers.
It doesn't make sense. And
That they
the lead up
perfectly
to
walk
that
under.
scene, like everyone is
What's that?
freaking out. Everyone is screaming except for him. He's just like,
I know.
Yeah.
But
Looking
it's a
around,
force
and he
field.
kicks
Like,
his toe
not
out.
that I know anything about force fields, but why does it not go to the bottom? How
Also,
can he fit?
I just love how there's 4 kind of angled in different spots that they just all happen to exactly stop in front of at the same exact time.
Okay.
Like it's all 4. There's 4 different beams coming
Okay,
down.
okay.
They even look like I wouldn't have even thought of it
Sure.
if the beams just came down in the shot. But then we look up and we see a shot of like these 4 tubes with
Okay.
like all the wires and everything. So Dr. Doom perfectly planned exactly where the 4 of them were going to stand and then stop in the room.
That's an
You read the
old
script.
It's
trope.
like
yeah.
it's like a Wile E. Coyote
Yeah.
level of like planning a trap.
I
like
gotcha.
it's
Yep. Oh boy. Okay.
a lot of this movies is like that.
Okay.
Um,
What
should we
effect?
talk about the thing now?
Let's talk about the thing. Let's talk about the suit.
You don't
Teenage
sound happy
Mutant
about this
Ninja
thing.
thing.
Hate the animatronic face.
I
hate
hate the lip, like the mouth.
Yeah.
Honestly, the suit looks like crap. It doesn't look great. I don't know.
Yeah. And the rest of the costume I think looks fine. There's
It's not great.
I don't think
but-
there's
okay.
any parts where it feels like foam though.
Sure,
You know what I
sure.
mean? Like it doesn't look like it's stretching in weird spots. Like it kind of the texture's there, the color's there. I think that the shape that they kind of have him in works as best as they can. Especially even like the shape of like the mold of the mask I think is great.
Okay.
It's the action and the giant eye holes with the tiny little eyes inside.
Yes,
like it just
yes, that's bad. You're right.
it's really rough.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
it's looking over our
it's not
shoulders
great.
right now.
It's not great.
And
It's
they
not
have
great.
that kind of like weird lip sync in the Ninja Turtles movies, right? But it works for the Ninja Turtles, and I feel like they also had way more time to figure out.
Well, again,
the mouth
maybe he didn't have
shapes.
time to go in and do
Right.
his lines. Maybe it was
Yeah.
just whatever was on set. Yeah, that was
But-
bad.
But they try their best with those
Mm-hmm.
types of animatronics. This didn't. I don't know. They might as well have just been doing this because it
Agreed.
would have had the same effect for me.
You know, maybe the dissenting opinion here. I was a little impressed by the suit.
Okay.
I was a little impressed by it. It didn't look great.
Oh, sure.
And then there were some big issues with it. The eyes were one of them.
Right.
And corollary to that, mouth is a little bit too wide
Yeah.
now for the eyes, right? Like
Sure,
there's just a bit of a mismatch there. It just looked a little creepy. But the fact that they built this animatronic, the fact that they made this suit, wow. Like you're working. You're
For the
putting in
budget
some
they've
work.
got,
For the
yeah.
budget.
Yeah, for this, that's a lot of work for this. And it was weird at times, but at times it was also pretty effective. I was not sold on it at first. At first, when we first meet the thing, this is right after the crash, and the army is there, and they've got all these jeeps, and everything's lit with headlights, like a lot of motion, a lot of light, and then we're sort of panning back and forth or between everyone else and the thing is just flat lit with a completely black backdrop. And I'm thinking to myself, is this a blue screen and they were going to put something behind them and they couldn't? Like, is this something that they built and they can't move? And I started crafting these theories in my head. It's like, why does this look weird like this? Oh, it must just be a thing that they can't move it around. They have to bring the shot to it. But then the next scene, he's walking away in the suit. So it's not that.
It was probably an unfinished effect, I think.
It might have been. But I grew on it. Or it grew on me or whatever.
Yeah.
It got better. It didn't... Aside from wide shots.
Sure.
And you're seeing him walking across the street and his arms are just kind of doing this thing. Like he can't move his arms. You ever seen I Think You Should Leave? The TV comedy? There's a skit, I don't know, maybe some of you have seen it, where he dresses up as an old man in this really big suit and he's walking around a mall. And I hate my life because I'm wearing this stupid suit. I got vibes of that. Just I can't move in this in the wide shots, but close-ups I thought they were pretty good. Right?
Yeah, I think it's especially good for the budget, but I
think it's great for the budget.
Yeah, but I think as a whole, it didn't work for me. The same way that like the read effects didn't work for me. I think that again, the things that they were doing were technically right. It just wasn't executed properly. Like they should have done things to make their limitations work.
I agree with that. Agree.
But I will say that in my opinion, out of the four, by and far and away the best. The Thing, yeah.
Yeah, probably the best.
Probably
effect.
the best.
Yeah.
So okay, that leaves Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, and I just thought of this. I don't know why they couldn't have done just a simple effect of one of the things in the tropes in comic books is that when someone's invisible, we can still see the outline of them, right? In this movie, they could have done a simple effect of just like that, like a
partially
white
transparent,
outline, or even just transparent.
Yeah.
But just to be like either there or not there, or like crop 49% and then just feather 10%, like that was just not creative at all.
Or
right?
even the fact that like when she does change, it's like a linear wipe down.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't like vroom, like it's not creative even how they've like edited it.
Yep.
It's just like, oh, we need to do this effect. Let's just
and even with the technology at the time, they could have done like a simple like, I don't know, put her against a green screen, lighter, backlighter, something, and just done that effect where you just impose that kind of outline of her over the shot or something, right? Like, what do you think, Ian?
There's a whole bunch of ways that you could do it. They had the technology to make her either solid or completely transparent or anywhere in between.
Right.
So when she's invisible, dress her up in something, either like fully black or maybe like silver or something that when you bring that transparency down to almost zero, now you get like a little shimmer, right?
A little shimmer.
Or maybe like a little hole, right?
Yeah.
Like it says it's a little bit darker where she is.
Like a Klingon cloaking device.
Yeah,
like it
something
just
like that.
like the Predator effect. There's a
Right.
distortion. Again, I'm not saying it's easy, but they could have been a little bit more creative.
Yeah, they could have tried one or two things. And
Yeah.
it looks as though they had this machine that, when you do this, it makes them invisible.
Yeah.
Okay, how's that? Good.
Yeah.
Let's just print it.
Agree. So that was probably the worst, the least creative, eh?
Well,
least
we have one
creative,
more guy
maybe.
to talk
Wow.
about. I forgot the Human Torch. Oh my god. Okay, I gotta admit, I am the first one to criticize CGI. I didn't hate the CGI guy. What did you think? You hated it.
It was awful. What are you talking about?
I actually didn't. I mean, I'm the guy. I didn't even like Jurassic Park, but I thought that this guy was like okay.
It's one of the funniest things that I've ever seen on
it
a
was
screen.
insane.
I know.
He looked like a Windows 95 screensaver.
I
You know what I mean?
know,
Like
I
the way
know.
that it looked like they drew a line and they just put him on this motion path, and his whole body just like dolphined wherever they needed him to go.
I know,
Like
it was
wasn't.
bad.
There was no like animation on the character.
No, it was just-
they
it's
posed
like-
him and then they just put him on this little trail.
It's like
and
click the ragdoll physics button.
yeah.
Default settings are fine,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
absolutely wild.
Like when he first starts to fly up to, and you're just seeing his feet.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah.
bubbling, and it's
Yeah.
like the entire in that one shot, the entire room is engulfed in flames, and it cuts to Sue and Reed, and they're just like looking at him. There's no like red flashing
Right,
firelight
right,
on him.
right.
They're just like, awful. And then even when he's doing his little fire effects, god awful. They're so bad.
They're pretty bad.
Like they're
pretty
terrible.
bad. Yeah.
Like you can tell they filmed all of those scenes with a piece of glass in front of him, and they just used an overhead projector and projected a little fire animation.
Okay.
And he's doing
Is that
this
how he did
because the fire is, you can see the fire like
And it's on a
wrapping
different-
around his hand,
Yeah.
and then you can see it behind him as well as it's like hitting the wall or whatever.
Okay,
Like it's
okay.
to me that's what it looks like. Is it's just like this
Yeah.
glass effect with like a projector over top.
At least
of it.
that's a little creative.
Yeah, it just doesn't look good.
It doesn't look
It doesn't
great.
look good at all.
Doesn't look great, but
Yeah.
I'll take that
Over
over the CGI. I'll take that over the weird transparency. I'll take that over the kicking the leg out.
Yeah.
It's like at least they were trying something there. How do we
That's
make
true,
this
yeah.
effect work with what we've got?
Okay, so that leaves one special effects character, and that's Doctor Doom. Now, one thing about this version of Doctor Doom is it's been said this is the most comic book accurate, which maybe says they shouldn't always be comic book accurate, but he looks pretty good.
Yeah, he just looks too like a tiny bit too comic book accurate
Right.
in the sense that everything is too flat on him. Like there's no weathering, there's no like folds in the fabric
no
to make
weight.
it feel.
Right.
Yeah,
it just feels like it's
looks like a Halloween
felt.
costume.
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
like
right,
it
yeah.
looks a little too cheap to be like real life. And I don't like necessarily always like making the costumes grounded and real, but it also needs to not look fake, like it was a prop from something.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I
They
mean?
have
Like
to
it-
look like they follow the same physical laws
Yeah.
that our
Yeah.
clothing does.
right.
You can tell that all of the pieces of armor are plastic. Like
Yeah.
it does not look like, nothing looks like metal in his costume.
No, you're right.
You know,
And to be fair, the lighting did do a good job of hiding that. But ideally, you're right. They'd make
Yeah.
it look more intimidating and frightening, like Darth Vader.
Something,
Like
yeah.
everyone's scared of Darth Vader, but this guy was just like, it looks accurate, but it's not great.
yeah, and I think the sound effects didn't help
Yeah.
to make like
The
you
clicking.
can you can hear the clicking of the plastic and the fingers, and it just he didn't work for me. I think in stills he actually looks pretty good because you don't get the context of the movie and like him moving around.
Yep.
So as like a picture, it's like, whoa, that looks exactly like the comic book, and it feels okay. But in the movie, for me, it doesn't work almost at all. Like it, again, on paper, it should work. Like,
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed because in the overall scheme of things, he's not bad, but it's not great either.
right. And I should say too, like he has like the full helmet. He's got the gauntlets. He's got
Yep.
like the leg armor.
Yeah.
He's got like the full like green tunic and the cape and everything. Like this is Doctor Doom from the
Yeah.
comics. So in that sense, it's great. We haven't really gotten that any other time in a
True.
Fantastic Four adaptation. So for that, I will definitely give it credit. I just, again, I don't think it works in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So Ian?
I like the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Okay.
That's about it. I didn't really.
Oh, he's not in the picture.
I didn't. Oh yeah. I didn't really follow along with why he existed in the context
They
of
didn't
this
fully
movie.
explain that.
No,
yeah.
like he gets zapped by this radiation, and then some henchmen know that he has been given the consciousness of whatever, something from.
Well, the movie's different than the comic. I didn't quite get that because in the comic he gets his abilities in a completely different way. But in the movie, I don't remember. Yeah, he survived the accident, and the way they kept his consciousness alive somehow.
Is there some consciousness in space that goes into him? Is that a thing that happens? Because
I don't.
I can't remember how it happens in
I don't
this
remember
movie,
who's seen
but-
this movie. I don't know.
it seems as though those two like henchmen that dress up as doctors that say that he's dead, and then we're going
Yeah.
to take him
Bring
to the
him-
morgue.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah.
We have to save him. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, it's very strange.
It is. I didn't get it.
We
I don't
didn't say
know.
it was a masterpiece.
Right.
We just said it was.
He
pretty
also
good.
doesn't have any abilities. I don't think he.
Okay, I've been
right?
reading comics for 40 years. I have no idea what Doctor Doom does.
Well,
I don't know.
he's got
He's a
a
magician.
space
He's a
laser.
sorcerer.
He's got
That's
a
it.
laser. What's this?
But he also shoots
He's a-
lasers, doesn't he?
He's like
He shoots lasers at stock footage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Buildings.
He's a rich king that has magic powers. Like all of his
Okay.
powers are supposed to be like he's a sorcerer.
Yeah, he's a black
So-
magic. Yeah.
Okay.
In this, he has a gun.
He's also got a giant castle with a weird ass
That's
throne
That's
room.
accurate.
because he's
yeah.
the ruler of Latveria.
Yeah.
He's a
Is this established in
Yeah,
the
in the
movie?
movie.
at all?
I'm not sure about that. In the
Well,
comic,
you
it
do
is.
see him in a castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah, he's the ruler of a fictional European
Yeah.
country called Latveria. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was on the fence about him.
That
I
would be
like the
cool to
mask
see.
though.
Yeah.
Like
and
the
like I
mask.
said, if you get, did you guys watch the documentary Doomed?
No.
It's very like
I
just
have before.
throw
yeah.
it on when you're
Yeah.
brushing your teeth. Watch it when you're doing dishes. It's
It's
awesome.
been a while
Yeah.
since I've seen it, but it is very good.
And like I
Yeah.
said, when you see the interviews with the guy who played Doctor Doom, I think you'll like him. He's very cool.
And it 100% gives me a different context.
Yes.
Because I watched the movie and then I watched the documentary like way
Yep.
back. And then again, watching it this time, I think I had the documentary more in mind. Like I remembered
Sure.
more from that than the actual movie. So watching it this time, I enjoyed it way more because I knew like the actors. It felt like I knew the actors a little bit more personally,
Yeah.
and knowing how much they like loved this movie and how much they were like screwed over during the production, it like endeared me to this.
So, okay, which brings us to our final point. I personally think this whole practice of, shelving movies like Batgirl and what was the Looney Tunes one?
Roadrunner versus
Right.
Acme.
I really think
Yeah.
if they're going to have another strike,
Scoob,
they
Holiday
just-
Hunt.
this whole practice should be illegal because
Haunt.
I love Michael Keaton, but he said something that was really cold. He's like, yeah, well, I didn't really even care if they shelved Batgirl. I mean, I got my paycheck. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's nice, Mike. But there's also 100 other people that worked in the movie that are not Michael Keaton.
Right.
Their work will never see the light of day, right?
And that could be the difference between their
a
career
career.
taking off or not.
And
Just like this movie.
Yeah,
right?
and every single one of them signed NDAs. They're not allowed to talk about it. So like now somebody who's put a year or more of like time and effort into a film now has nothing to show for it to try and get a job for the next film. Like
Yep.
it's awful. And not to mention these things are already made. Like the Batgirl or
Right.
Roadrunner versus Acme, Scoob Holiday Hunt was this fully animated movie that was done. They were almost done rendering and they canceled it. Warner Brothers again. Like it's these movies that are like 99% finished and they just shelve it because it's they crunched some numbers and we don't think this one's going to be as successful, so we'd rather scrap it for a tax write-off because we'll get our
it
money
should
back.
be illegal. Like I said, it's bullshit. Total
it's
bullshit.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and Ian, if you get a chance, watch the movie because it is really sad what happened with
Doomed,
everything.
yeah.
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 And I don't know. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, Marvel had already done Captain America, which we watched, Punisher. Does it really matter if one more comes out? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
This would have topped both of them.
I agree.
I agree.
Especially if they maybe threw another $500,000 at it.
Let them finish the effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, improve.
Yeah.
You're right.
Overdub
Overdub Dr. Doom's lines,
lines.
fix a couple effects. Yeah, it could have been okay. Even if it was a TV movie, like who gives a shit, right? Yeah. I don't know what to say. So overall, I think we are in agreement with, because Red Letter Media reviewed this and they thought it was the best of the 4 FF movies.
Okay.
And I think we might be, I mean, I'm not saying it's better than the middle 2 with Jessica Alba, but this was better than we thought it would be.
Yeah.
Right?
I was entertained,
Yeah.
and this was before I learned about its history.
Right.
And once I learned that they did it for $1 million and they scrapped it and it wasn't finished, thought it was good.
Yeah.
Right.
Considering all of those
Right.
details.
Definitely more entertaining than a lot of the movies we reviewed, like Doc Savage, Captain America, Swamp Thing, whatever. Yeah, this is pretty entertaining. Even better than like the Flash TV show and all that stuff. Like this is pretty good.
I'm gonna remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember half the other stuff that we've watched.
Yeah, it's true. Sorry, Ian.
It's all right. It's all right.
It's okay. We're forgiven.
Apologize if I did remember half of this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So anyway, I don't know. Is there anything else to say about FF, Josh?
No, I think this film is a fascinating kind of story. Definitely go watch Doomed if you can.
Definitely.
Watch this film. It's on YouTube for free.
Yeah. If you get a chance to talk to these people at conventions, they all seem really nice. I've never met them, but they seem nice.
Yeah.
Right? Get an autograph, get a picture taken.
Yeah, I felt like I was really harsh during the review, but I do have like this soft spot for this movie. I did enjoy it, and I do enjoy watching this film.
There you go.
So.
Fantastic Four, 1994.
I believe so.
Check it out and then watch our review. But if you're watching our review, you've already watched our review. So just watch the movie. All right. Until the next time, see you later.